Which deployment prep actually prepared you versus what was just checking boxes? 6 weeks before deploying to Iraq, our unit went through standard pre-deployment training. Endless PowerPoint slides about cultural awareness, legal briefings, medical preparedness, the whole 9 yards. Most of it felt like box checking. Sit in a classroom, sign a form, move to the next station. I remember thinking this was the biggest waste of time in my military career. The cultural awareness class was especially pointless. Some contractor named Leonard showed us slides about respecting local customs. Don't point your feet at people. Don't use your left hand for greetings. Basic stuff you could find on Google. This will help you build rapport with Iraqi civilians, Leonard said in this bored voice. He'd clearly given this briefing 1,000 times. My buddy Quincy fell asleep halfway through. Nobody cared. Even our platoon sergeant looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. But there was one training that seemed different. Combat Lifesaver course taught by Sergeant Vincent Carr, Vietnam vet who'd stayed in and made a career of it. Carr didn't use PowerPoint, just walked into the room carrying a bag of medical supplies and a training dummy that looked like it had survived 3 wars. Everything else you learned this week is garbage, he said. This class might actually keep your buddies alive. He spent 8 hours teaching us practical medicine, how to pack a wound, apply tourniquets, treat sucking chest wounds, start IVs, all hands-on training with realistic scenarios. You're gonna see things that make you want to freeze up, Carr said. Your best friend bleeding out, strangers hurt bad, kids crying. The training kicks in when your brain shuts down. He made us practice on each other. Real tourniquets tight enough to hurt, actual pressure on wounds until our arms shook. If it doesn't hurt in training, you're doing it wrong. Pain means you're learning. Most guys complain, said Carr was too intense, too harsh. Quincy said he was traumatizing us before we even deployed. I didn't mind it. Something about Carr's approach felt real compared to everything else. 3 months into deployment, our convoy hit an IED outside Fallujah. Front vehicle took the blast. Driver was specialist Neil Hutchins, kid from Tennessee, only 20 years old. Shrapnel had torn through his leg, femoral artery severed, blood everywhere, pumping out with each heartbeat. He had maybe 2 minutes before he bled out. I jumped out of my vehicle and ran to him. My hands moved automatically, exactly like Carr had taught us. Tourniquet high and tight on the thigh, twisted until the bleeding stopped. Didn't think, just did it. Neil was screaming, trying to push me away. The pain from that tourniquet is intense. I know it hurts, I told him. Means it's working. Pack the wound with gauze. Started an IV while waiting for the medic. Everything Carr drilled into us came back like muscle memory. The medic arrived, looked at my work, nodded approval. Good job. You probably just saved his life. Neil survived. Lost part of his leg but lived to go home to his family. Doctor said another minute of bleeding and he wouldn't have made it. Back at base that night, I thought about all those pre-deployment classes. The cultural awareness, the legal briefings, the endless PowerPoint slides I couldn't remember even 1 week later. Then I thought about Carr's class. 8 hours of practical training that felt too intense at the time. That's what actually mattered. Quincy found me in the chow hall later. Man, I'm glad you paid attention in that lifesaver course. I slept through half of it. You complained the whole time, I reminded him. Said Carr was being too rough on us. Yeah, well, I was an idiot. That class was the only real training we got. I wrote Carr a letter when we got back. Told him what happened with Neil, how his training made the difference between life and death. He wrote back 3 weeks later. Short note, typical Carr style. Glad the training stuck. That's 14 lives saved by soldiers I've trained. Keep the letter. You earned it. 14 lives. This guy had been teaching that same intense class for years, getting complaints about being too harsh, too realistic, too much. And he'd saved 14 lives through the soldiers he trained. Neil came to visit our unit 6 months after he got medically discharged. Walking on a prosthetic leg, doing great, about to start college. He found me in the motor pool. Hey, I never properly thanked you for what you did. My daughter was born 3 months ago. She wouldn't exist if you hadn't known what to do. He showed me a photo on his phone. Beautiful baby girl, maybe 3 months old, wearing a tiny pink dress. Her name's Caroline. My wife wanted to name her after you, but your name's not exactly feminine. I laughed. Caroline's perfect. Listen, Neil said. Who taught you that combat lifesaver stuff? Sergeant Carr, the guy everyone complained about during pre-deployment. Neil nodded slowly. I want to meet him. Thank him personally. Turned out Carr was teaching another pre-deployment cycle at the same base. We found him in the training building, making a new group of soldiers practice tourniquets until they got it perfect. Same intense approach, same realistic scenarios, same complaints from soldiers who thought he was being too harsh. Neil walked in and waited until Carr finished the demonstration. Then he approached with his prosthetic leg clearly visible. Sergeant Carr, I'm Neil Hutchins. One of your students saved my life in Iraq using exactly what you taught him. Carr looked at Neil's leg, then at me, then back at Neil. For the first time, I saw emotion on the old sergeant's face. Glad you made it home, son. Neil pulled out his phone, showed Carr the photo of his daughter. This is Caroline. She exists because you taught someone how to stop bleeding. Carr stared at that photo for a long moment. 15, he said quietly. Then louder. Make that 15 lives. He pulled out a worn notebook from his pocket, wrote down Neil's name, the date, and femoral artery tourniquet save. I keep track, he explained. Every confirmed life saved by my training goes in here. Started it 20 years ago. The new group of soldiers had stopped practicing to watch this exchange. Carr turned to them, holding up his notebook. This is why we train hard. This is why I make you uncomfortable. Because somewhere downrange you're going to need this, and someone's daughter gets to grow up with a father. Nobody complained about the training being too intense after that.